everybody, we're back. This is Corbin, the Serpent Tongue Skipper.
This is Ran, the Berserker Marabou, and welcome to
Sagas.
Yo! Welcome, everybody.
Welcome back. Episode 17, I think.
I'm glad you counted this week because I didn't have a clue. I was about to ask you. Episode 17.
I was going to say, so before we start getting into it, I think it's only fair to shout out Amorphous, who shared our actual podcast link. I got in contact with them. They're awesome, and obviously we had nothing but good things last week. So yeah, shout out to them for helping us progress in the podcast.
Big time. Massive fan, obviously. And when I seen that news, I was over the moon. So thank you, Amorphous, for the love and support. Right back at you. Stay awesome.
Nice. All right. So, because I chose this week, so as I said last week, we'll be talking about the 2007 debut album by deathcore band Suicide Silence. So since this is your first time, because you only told me in text that you were familiar with the third album.
Yeah.
So I'm actually real curious to know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, if you could just bear with me for 2 seconds there, bro. I need to move a snare strip off a snare over here. It keeps vibrating when you're talking.
All good. Don't worry, we're going to be a lot more organized this episode.
Just broke a trumpet on my way. Right, okay, cool. There it is, bro. I had to get... It was going to annoy me. I'm fixing up a snare drum for Terrence for the drum. So, right, so my first listen to this, I was very surprised how much I enjoyed it, actually. I was a big fan of the 2011 album, The Black Crown. That was pretty much all I'd heard of them because it was about the time, as far as I knew, that they were starting to really take off. Well, they were put into the real mainstream sort of kind of eye point. But yeah, The Cleansing, man, I liked it. It was really good. You know, it was an almost nostalgic vibe back for me. This one was looking for a lighter. It's on the drum behind you there. Sorry. Busy house here today. But I knew that was gonna happen as well. Like yeah, man, it was a great album. First listen, before I go into any detail, I very much enjoyed it. You know, I didn't think I'd like it as much, because it was I'll get into it later on, but it was a genre that kind of came in and it was a rival to my musical style at the time. So I have a whole thing to talk about later on, but obviously Suicide Silence weren't a rival of mine. They were fucking megastars. But yeah, so yeah, wicked, man. Good shout this week.
Nice. All right, so I was listening to this when I was in my teens. I discovered this band, and one thing, it's always funny to me, and I think about this a lot. I was always, for some reason, in my group of friends, I was always the one that listened. Like I was always the heaviest genre listener among my friends. Like when I was listening to Suicide Silence and Cannibal Corpse and Dying Fetus, they were listening to like Parkway Drive and bands like that. And like, you know, great bands, no disrespect, but just like I was always tiers more extreme than my contemporaries, than my friends. So when I discovered this album, the first thing I remember thinking is the paradox here, and this is a paradox I'm going to dive into today. It's like, as you've heard, this album is somehow one of the most brutally sounding albums you ever hear, but at the same time, it's also one of the most grooviest. And it's like, they're not meant to mix. Normally, deathcore music is pretty meat and potatoes, like just like most of death metal is. It's very meat and potatoes, but somehow they made a brutal album sound brutal and groovy. And yeah, I'll talk about it more later, but like, to me, it's just insane how in that extreme chaos, there's somehow finesse and groove, as I keep saying. Like, I don't know how that works, so that was my first thought, and it remains my favorite deathcore album of all time.
Class. I mean, the first thing I read about this album was that it was recorded live in studio, and the minute I heard that, I was like, holy shit, that's amazing. You know, because it's not something that many bands do nowadays. It was more of a thing back in the day. You know, you get the Beatles in recording live in the studio and stuff like that, and you can really hear the energy in the the final tracks. But for a band, 2007, like it's a pretty cool thing to be doing, and you can hear the intensity in the songs because they were doing it like that. It was a really good show. Um, I don't think they've done it in any other albums after that, but
Mm.
yeah, for their first album straight out the gate, I think they signed with Century
Yep.
Media Records just before this, and it was a bold move, man. I was like, right, well, we're gonna do this like this, but then, you know, they got world class producers to work on it as well with them, and I'm surprised that none of them said, boys, don't do it like that. So props to them for that anyway, straight off the bat. But so as far as I'm aware, I mean, I only listened to the album A Time to Bleed. No, sorry, that's the next album. The Black Crown. I'd only listened to it, but I was very aware of their influence on the scene and where they came from, and obviously Mitch, his passing later on. Um, it was only a little while before he actually died that I actually got a chance to listen to that album, and it was just unfortunate. I was like, shit, man, because I would have delved in a lot more, but yeah. So apparently they redefined the whole thing. I mean, there was always bands like At the Gates who started off, but they're you wouldn't call them deathcore. They were more death metal, but I suppose the very first, as far as I'm aware, Suicide Silence were the first to really push that. Maybe they were the first ones to break out. I think there was quite a decent scene going around with all of these bands that were playing this deathcore stuff. But these are the boys that just broke out, and I think it's primarily because of Mitch. Mitch had this insane presence. Like what a dude! I think he was like 6'5", covered in tattoos, insane vocal range. Like we'll probably end up talking about his vocal range for the whole podcast, but just his stage presence. And it's funny that I've often heard people talk about his approachability. You look at him on stage and listen to the lyric content in his lyrics, and you'd be like, nah, he's not. He sounds like a bit of an angry guy. I don't think we'll talk to him. But then they look at him and see him, and he's this big 6'5", covered in tattoos, but like almost pretty boyish as well, with his swoopy haircut and stuff. So that's just kind of where it kind of opened up the door for them a little bit, because you had like the emo scene, you had the metalcore and stuff, but these boys took all. Well, they didn't actually take anything from them, except for literally Mitch's hairstyle and his clothing style. Maybe he just looked a little bit easier on these kids for influence. They weren't afraid of him. But then it was just, he had so many signature moves that became big things, like the Mitch stomp. He had like this big famous stomp, and I used that as well. I used that on stage, and the hop, the bounce and stuff. I'll get back into the bounce and the hop stuff later on, but it's just a really cool concept to mix death metal and hardcore music together, just to give you the intensity and the violence, but the groove and the bounciness to it. Like, it's a very cool, this scene I think gets overlooked, but the deathcore is a very vital and important part of the music that we have today. That's my opinion.
When you think about it, Mitch Locker was like a scene kid on steroids. Like if you took the scene kids and then gave them steroids, that's what it was, like this massive scene kid. Such a brutal take, but
yeah, I know, it's good.
Yeah, but think about, like, to me, I remember in this era, because in this era, to me, there were two types of genres that were big to me, but years later have just become, I think, very obscure since the forefather bands. And the two genres, deathcore and grindcore. Grindcore, I'm not really a big fan of anyway, but there was a lot of grindcore bands like Dying Fetus who are amazing geniuses, but they get overlooked in like the best band conversations, modern bands, because they do grindcore. And grindcore today you can't find anyone talking about grindcore online, or it seems just like deathcore to be a genre that was at its peak 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and now it's died down. It's unfortunate because, yeah, like you said, it should get more attention because bands like, in deathcore, bands like Whitechapel, Thy Art Is Murder, Job for a Cowboy, Still Her Silence, like these guys were like 100-foot monstrosities going through the music scene, stomping everything out. And like, I'm sure there are a lot of people afraid of this kind of sound because it was just so intense. It was like, it's different than death metal because death metal normally, it's about death and it's very purposefully tongue-in-cheek almost, like in how extreme the violence is. But here, when they're talking and the music's so heavy, it feels heavy. It feels like it's just weighing on your shoulders. And like the way they can bring that kind of gargantuan sound, and because it's live, especially live. And like the one thing I liked about Mitch Lucker, which I feel the Scene Kids and the Screamo era kind of probably stole from him, but he used to like, you hear it, he used to like say random, like say ad-libs in between the songs. It's like, it's like, I think in the song No Pity for a Coward, he says something like, put the gun against your fucking head or something. And so it's like stops the song to say that, and then the breakdown. Oh, it's just the small things that he did and his monstrosity of a range and his heaviness. It's just something that, to be honest, no one's replicated since.
No, like honest to God, man, his vocal range is everybody that even attempts to do that high fry vocals is only tipping the the bottom of the iceberg to get near him, like, or the tip of the iceberg, whichever way you want to say it. Like he had an absolutely incredible talent. I saw it was kind of a sad interview with his mother chatting about him, but she said something that was pretty profound and almost humorous in a way. She goes, "He came out screaming," and that's what he ended up doing for his career. Like, it was pretty sweet. Like, but before we go into any detail with the tracks, just talking about deathcore, that scene even in Ireland was huge. Like every couple of weeks you'd hear another band coming out, deathcore or remnants of metalcore. And it, like, as I was a little bit older than that generation, so I was more like post-hardcore was the big thing when I was a young fella getting into music. And we were gigging around, my band Kerouac were gigging around, and all of a sudden we were like the energetic bad boys, and then all of a sudden this deathcore came about, and all these bands just had this absolutely incredible energy. Whatever it was like this everybody like simultaneously headbanging on the stage at the same time, this like in unison kind of thing. It just made a real striking impact on the people on the ground. And obviously all of this comes from Mitch and the boys Suicide Silence. We'd be playing, like, there's nothing worse than going on to play after a band that everybody is headbanging in unison and the crowd is bouncing, and you're like, shit, I have to go on after that shit. Like, and there's quite a lot of bands over here in Ireland that, really, it blew up over here. Like, it pretty much just drowned everybody else. The scene over here for a good, 5 to 10 years was just that. So in a way it was like, and I can imagine that explosion was all over the world, like, so it just goes to show what an impact it really had. Yeah, I mean, Jackson guitars, tuned down to A, like baritone guitars, by the way, big super long necks that could be tuned really low, super fat strings. It was just heavy, heavy, heavy. Everything about it was like Mitch used to sing in the studio, bent forward, like as if he was on stage with his foot on the monitor. It was like he really wanted to just, get that demon, like he was doing an exorcism on himself. That's what it was like. But he did have his demons as well. But like, he was a super nice guy, which is really cool. It's nice to see. Not one person could ever say anything bad about Mitch in the music scene, and that's a very rare thing. Especially at his level. And then you think about the lyrics and the you know, the themes of his lyric content. It's very dark. You know, you hit on it a little bit there. But when he was pissed off at somebody, man, could he rip them apart, like, you know? So yeah, badass, like.
Yeah, a few things I found interesting about this album. Like, apparently, I could be wrong, but from my research, of all the songs on the album, apparently Green Monster was the single.
Ah,
I'm like, why? Why of all songs is that like? Because to me, the first song that blew up to me was a song Unanswered, the first official track on the album, second track. To me, that was the first music video and song I found of them. And to me, I just always assumed that was a single. But then when I researched, apparently that was that's interesting. But so the main thing I wanted to bring up is there's one thing I noticed. I mean, obviously besides Mitch's vocals, so there's one thing I noticed throughout this album that the more I listened to it, the more appreciative and amazing it came to me is as I'm listening to songs like, you know, Girls of Glass with that almost suspenseful horror movie riff, dun, 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 and then that funky guitar riff on, the funky guitar riff on the song in a photograph. When I listen to all these songs and the real heavy unanswered tune, there's one thing I think is just how amazing guitarist Mark Hellerman is.
yeah,
Like the fact that he was able to he did for Suicide Silence what Dimebag Darrell did for Pantera. He made a heavy, heavy sound, a badass sound funky and creative at the same time and technical. It's just how he manages to pull off the different like riffs and patterns in such a deathcore, but to input that into a deathcore album and make it sound fresh and make it sound vibrant, that's almost impossible. And that's the paradox I was talking about at the start of this. The paradox, one end of the paradox is Mark himself, and the other end is Mitch. Together, they somehow form a paradox that works, which doesn't make sense. But yeah, his funky, the way he plays the guitar in this album is just absolutely phenomenal.
yeah. It's really intense guitar playing, like really in your face. But you know, they put a lot of their influence, especially Mark and stuff, on the Deftones, and it's really interesting because you'd listen to these, and if you weren't aware that they were influenced by Deftones guitar wise, it probably wouldn't hit you straight away. But when you know, and then you listen to it, and you can actually hear the subtle intricacies, or not even intricacies, but the subtle usage of um Stefan from Deftones guitar style. It's absolutely badass, and that's another thing that really stood out for me. And my favorite track on the album, which we'll get to later on, reminded me of the Deftones, and that's what really got me going. But yeah, like you know, that's one thing with bands like these where there's so many breakdowns. It's like a breakdown layered on top of another breakdown, and that some people might look down on, oh, it's all just breakdowns, but it's like, yeah, but breakdowns is like the best part of the song. So if you're gonna have breakdowns the whole song, it's gonna be like badass the whole way through. Like, what's your argument? Like, I love a good headbang, and this album made you headbang. It was actually the reason why I liked their album, The Black Crown, ages ago, was the headbanging. There was the first thing I ever saw them, they were in a video shoot, and they were all getting shot in the video shoot, and it was just like, that's insane, that's crazy shit. Like, getting shooting yourself, or getting, uh, what do they call that when the blood blows up off you? I don't know. Like when you're getting fake pretend shot in a movie, all that kind of stuff. Like, we'll never do a podcast about movies anyway, and special effects. I haven't got a clue. But yeah, it was just really cool. Like, they just seemed like I don't know, just super cool, creative, and just all out. There was no airs and graces about them, like. But talking about the guitars and the guitar tones, you could put a lot of that down on this album, especially to their producer, their amazing Danish producer, Tu Madsen. Like, to have him working on the album was absolutely crazy. They had a couple of other boys on this that I'll hit on after. But I mean, this boy worked with Meshuggah. You talk about guitar tone, big heavy guitar tone. Dark Tranquility is another big one. The Haunted, like he produced one of my favorite Haunted albums as well, which I might do on the podcast another time. But yeah, it's to have such a genius man like himself working on, and them giving him this raw in studio live performance. It's just like it's just outrageous. But yeah, you hit on as well the price of beauty. I think you said about the music videos. That was banned on MTV when it came out, which I thought was it was like they came out show you their first album, one of their first music videos, and the thing is themed visually and lyrically explicit. So straight off the bat, it's like, right, lads, we mean business here. Like, there's no messing.
Yeah, they don't conform for shit. Funny.
Yeah.
It's interesting because like going back to the Black Crown, it's interesting because like I think, and this is probably the only negative you can ever say about the band, but like I think they coined the "you only live once" term because they had that song. That was the lead single, wasn't it? YOLO. I think they started that. It's like, what a dumb trend. But besides that, I mean, it's good album otherwise. But yeah, I just think it's so interesting, like the how like apparently on this first week it only made 7,250 sales, but then ended up becoming the most sold debut album in century history. It's just like, it goes to show, it's like, but like, yeah, it goes to show that they were underappreciated at first, but then obviously once they blew up, they fucking blew up, and it's just like you couldn't stop it. And even to this day, they're still going. Just not with Mitch. But from what I've heard, they've changed the style a lot. But the one thing that I find interesting is like, yeah, like you said, just like it's just how underrated it really. I mean, obviously, we know Suicide Silence, we love them, but it's like they're so underrated. I feel they're not brought up very often. And as I was saying earlier, like in the first 5 minutes, it's the same thing I feel the band Dying Fetus is going through. They're one of the most technically sound bands I've ever heard, but because they make grindcore, no one adds them in conversations. But it's the same thing. Like I don't hear enough people talk about not only Suicide Silence, but this album and how for 2007, I don't know what was listening to 2007, but to hear this heaviness that early, that's like, to this day, as I was talking on text, to this day, if this album came out tomorrow, it would still rival any band, like any metal band, like no, in heaviness, in brutality. This album was too heavy for even its own time. So it's like, they really were. I mean, I was gonna say they were never a lightning in the bottle either, because this album was a classic. They're No Time to Bleed, which I don't know if you've heard that, but that's a classic. And then The Black Crown was just a really good album. So Mitch Lucker produced nothing but hits when he was alive. And obviously Mark, he hasn't changed at all. His style is as better as it's ever been. And he's still with the band, past Mitch. So just proves just like how much of a juggernaut he is, and just, how much of an influence and how much of an impact Mitch left behind.
Yeah, I mean, you say he only had a short career, 7, 8 years. I suppose the band started. Oh, actually, they had that cool EP at the start that was a Family Guy. It was based on Family Guy or something. They had like clips of like samples of Family Guy bits in the songs. It's I only heard a few bits of it, but it's a pretty cool concept. Like, I love Family Guy, so. But yeah, I mean, like for such a short career to have, such an incredible discography. Mitch, he done well. He paved the way for so many people, and he sadly missed. But talking about coming straight out the gate with just this completely, no let up, relentless album. Like, even as far as the artwork, what do you think of the artwork, bro?
Right, let's have a look. So, well, it's quite a vicious looking thing.
Yes.
You got the spikes coming out of the mouth, and I love the black, the pitch black logo, the band logo. Just the pitch. Well, it looks like dark red, like this dark tones, Suicide Silence, and then the guy with spikes in his mouth. It's the perfect way to say, fuck you, we're here and we don't care what you think.
Yeah, exactly. It's a really like it was it's very dark cover, very artistically dark. It was you know, Dave McKean is the artist. He's an English illustrator, photographer, and comic book artist. But he's worked with bands like Paradise Lost and Machine Head and all albums that we would have seen for years. Fear Factory, Counting Crows, interestingly enough, and the legendary Dream Theater. To name a few, like he's just one of those guys. Like he's a super talented guy in every fashion. Like he's a sculptor, he's a digital photographer, a painter, everything. Just a super creative guy. And it's like I say this about some albums. When everything lines up, you make the right decisions of who to work with and where to go with the album. It can really kick off like this. They made all the right choices, who to work with on the production. They recorded it in Sound Labs in Los Angeles. So with John Travis, who was one of the best in the business as well. So between where they engineered it, where they got it produced, the artwork, everything, and even the going to record it live in studio, they made all the right moves with this. And they were the very first band to mainstream release an album like this, as far as I'm aware anyway. Like you said, it hit the billboards. 7,250 copies is pretty good. I mean, it got them like halfway down the top 200, like 94 or something like that. So for your first album, it's pretty decent. I wouldn't mind if our new album that comes out in June does the same, but we'll see. But yeah, so just everything ticked off right. They done everything right, Um, but soon after they released this, they went on tour, and they went on tour with Parkway Drive and A Day to Remember. And it's I find it interesting because think of Parkway Drive and Day to Remember, and you'd think they're heavy bands, but like I don't know, I could just imagine Suicide Silence demolishing them on on these tours. Like I think they would have done like bands tour and all this kind of stuff. They would have just, oh man, they're so brutally heavy, like it's just crazy. Did you notice there's on the intro track there's like a sample from Freddy Krueger or Freddy versus Jason? I thought that was pretty cool. It just adds the horror theme to the whole vibe that they have going, which is a stark difference from Family Guy, the Family Guy demo. Oh man, it's brilliant. Like it just kind of goes to show. But apparently, as they paved the way, but then they recreated the deathcore again. They made it like deathcore 2.0 sort of thing when they brought out You Can't Stop Me, or there was like new metal influence and stuff. I haven't heard it yet, but I just read that. I thought that was really interesting, so I'd be interested to hear the kind of new metal influence on that. Yeah, it done well on the charts. But actually, that Parkway Drive, that was in Australia, so that they headed over your side of the water. I think what really, it stands out. This album is 15 years old. I think since April. I think it has like there's like a bonus double with like a shed load of other tracks. I think there's in total, what's there, 13 on it normally, well 12 with the bonus track, and then I think there's 28 in total. So that's a lot of bonus materials, And one that I loved, I seen them playing this track live, and it's one of my favorites by one of my favorite bands, Deftones, Engine Number 9. They done a cover of that, and I seen them playing it live, and I was like, that's super cool. But then when I seen it was on the bonus tracks, like, any band that does a good Deftones cover, in my opinion, is a good band. If you can do that right. And Mitch has that, because he's able to reach those super high screechy stuff. That's Chino sort of landscape of vocalism. So he definitely got a lot of props from me for doing that. The whole band did. So I don't know. Fair play to him.
This is this is a tad bit unrelated, but did you know? And I remember this when this came out, when this news came out, among me and my peers, we were just like, it just put Mitch into this like terrifying god level. Like he was already like apparently on one of the songs on his second album, And the Time to Bleed, there's a song on there. Apparently he had the sample from the Triple O, from the emergency call from the woman who got her face ripped off by a monkey. And I was like, that's savage. That is just to add that in there. And you could hear the screams like, fuck. That's what a savage move. So Mitch, he was just an unhinged, just psychopath in the studio, but obviously nice guy in the real life. But before we go talking about the our favorite, our infamous game, do you have anything or anyone you want to sponsor or shout out this week?
This week I think I would like to give Skull Strings another shout out. I had a nice post on the band page, and it was just nice to give them a shout out. So anybody that is looking for guitar strings, or you're a guitar player, or a guitar player, or it's a birthday, or like I say, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Kitty's Day, whatever day, you need a set of strings, Skull Strings. So it'll be skull-strings.com, and you can get the best strings in the world. And if you want, you can even get my signature ones, or our bass player Cass's signature strings. Highly recommend. They're amazing people, ran by family of awesome folk, and they're in France. So if you're in Europe, you'll get them quick smart. If you're in Corbin's side of the world, it might take a little longer, but it'd be well worth it. So yeah, that's me, bro. I'll leave it with Skull Strings.
Are you sure is there any band information you want to share? Update?
Well, we do have an update out on Facebook, funny enough, and Instagram about our new album. Tales of Ruin. We have a new single coming out, and this hasn't been officially announced, but the new single will be out in probably 2 weeks. It's called Let's Drink Mead. It's a jovial Viking song about the fallen warriors in Valhalla drinking mead and feasting and whatnot. So it's got a fun vibe to it. So that is the last single of the album. The album will be out then. We're looking at June, late June maybe. So you heard it here first, folks. Late June. New Ren Marabou and the Berserker album it'll be our first official full length with United Music Mafia. So we're super excited about that. Yeah, thanks for reminding me, bro.
One last thing I want to ask about that. If you had to describe one key difference in a sentence from Sagas to Tales of Ruin, what would you say?
Oh, energy.
Cool.
And yeah, there's a lot more energy in this track, this album. It's kind of like you could almost say it's Sagas on steroids. I'll use your phrase.
Nice. Well, I've been bugging him for months for it, so
it's coming, bro.
Because I got like such a cool concept for a review in my head, and I always go fucking off the wall with my ideas, and so if this goes well, so I'll start with my WordPress. So anyone who's been following my Relentless Reviews should know, but I haven't posted it in a while. It's not because I'm inactive, it's because I switched domains because I was sick of Facebook. And it's like, if I get banned, I can't post, then there's a good chance it could be banned quite a lot. So WordPress has to be where I go now, which is sick because I pay for the premium and they let me set up my own website, which is at serpenttongue94.wordpress.com. And you'll find my website, my domain, pretty simple. 2 options: reviews, contact. If you just want to check out reviews, go to reviews. If you want to contact me, it'll go straight to my Facebook account. Click message, I'm right there. And if you obviously, you want reviews, mixtapes, EPs, live albums, studio albums. I did a live album last 2 days ago. It happens, you get it. And I'll do my best to you know, I do my best to share it where I can, my Facebook and my WordPress, and sometimes Instagram if I can do it. And yeah, try and get your review out there. So, second thing, we got to shout out big boss man Zach Moonshine as always, the PR boss. I was just talking about reviews, but also there's more to music promotion than just reviews. And one of them is having a good PR guy. I've ended up getting in contact with a lot recently, and it's like in all different kinds of genres, and you realize just how important a good PR man is. And in my opinion, if you're in the metal, if you're a heavy metal band or a band in general, I still think Zach Moonshine is the best way to go. He will help push your band to astronomical new heights. And if you need a real story, ask Ren, and he will tell you whatever the story was for him. He's a happy man, and I'm sure he'll be happy to tell you. So there's proof, there's results. I know many bands that have worked out with him. So yeah, go to Zach Moonshine, that's ZACH, at metaldevastationradio.com, all one word, and see what he can do for you today. And lastly, I'm going to talk about my favorite, no, not my favorite, just I like them all the same, but one of my favorites, gasdigitalnetwork.com. So once this is released, you guys notice that we have 2 more logos added to our artwork. That's one of them is the Gas Digital Network, and one of them is my favorite podcast, Legion of Skanks, part of the Gas Digital Network. It's a network where you pay, for me, Australian, $14, $13 a month, and you get a variety of different shows. There's a show talking about Rick and Morty recaps. Why not? There's a show about wrestling. I love wrestling. You know, the show's about everything. It's just I choose Legion of Skanks, 3 comedians with 3 different personalities talking about defensive shit that probably shouldn't be joked about, but I love it all the more, and that's why I watch the podcast. And now we can have our first testimony from Red Marabou. How do you feel about the podcast?
Well, listen, man, you've been asking me for a while to listen and watch these boys, and I've been so busy. I saw a few drips and drabs, and I was like, yep, they seem really cool. I can't wait till I have time. I finally got time, and yeah, they are brilliant. They are great crack. Like, they are my kind of humor, and you know, like you say, the PG era vibe. It's funny because these boys would be near enough my generation, maybe just a tad older, but I get it, man. I get everything they're saying. So highly recommend Legions of Stanks.
Nice. Yeah. So yeah, they're our unofficial sponsors, and yeah, go check them out. They're on YouTube as well. Just to stay on YouTube, they need a cent for the first 10 minutes. So if you don't have the money to afford it, which is understandable, just go to YouTube. Make sure to keep up with the newest because they recycle through a few episodes at a time. So go watch it. Skip the first 10 minutes if the censoring bothers you. It does to me. That's why I get the network. Uncensored. So yeah, go check them out. It's not that expensive, and you got a ton of different shows to watch. Even if Legion of Skanks isn't your thing, I'm sure there's 29, 30 other shows that might be. So go check it out regardless. That's everything. Now for our game, do you have your guitar?
I don't have a guitar. I have my mandolin.
Okay. Now,
actually, I'll use a ukulele this week just to be a bit different.
Okay. It is now time for Devil's Advocate.
Stop.
That little SpongeBob note at the end. That was sick. Before we go into this, can we just, on a low key, talk about how fire the music in SpongeBob is?
Ah, man, sick.
That is like.
You know, I have a student here. I teach music, you know, as you know, but I'm not sure if everybody else knows. Every now and then I'll take on a student. We'll teach some fun bits and pieces about music. But I had one kid and he wanted to learn SpongeBob's theme tune. So I was actually learning how to play a couple of weeks ago, and it's really cool, man. It's like a proper fun song to play.
Can you play?
I don't have my guitar here at the minute. I mean, I know I should be able to play it on ukulele, but I haven't figured out that bit yet. But I'll have it for next week. But yeah, no, it's super cool music. Yeah.
All right. Do you want to start this week or me?
I tell you what, just before we go on, I want to just shout out to Kimo, our band manager. He loves SpongeBob. So, Kimo, that SpongeBob chat was for you. But yeah, you go ahead, bro. You go ahead.
Right. So this is again, I mean, I feel like, yeah, I mean, well, this is again one of those examples of we've had a few already since starting this podcast. Some albums where it's like, gun to my head, I don't know what to choose. And to me, this is another one of those albums. I think every track has its purpose. Every track is just, as you said, it's just a loop of headbangers of a loop of breakdowns. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like that's why obviously it's like putting the best part of the song in every second of it. What's wrong with that? This is an example. So for worst track, I'll take the band-aid off, get it over and done with. I'm gonna bitch out today. I'm gonna do the Ren Madrigal style like you did a few weeks ago. Actually, I think after this, after I say mine, I feel like we might have to change something going to next week. But for me, it's Revelations, only because it's the shortest track on here, and and it's giving me kind of an escape route of the Devil's Advocate. It's like, oh, I can choose this. It's 34 seconds, and it's not an official song, so technically I can choose it. But I think from next week, maybe we should ban you using intros to make it harder for us. Because I bitched out this week, and at least the rule was still intact this week. So I'm choosing Revelations just for one more time. Because every track on here is perfect, and it's just like I can't choose one. So favorite track. This is where it gets fun because I've always had two in my head, and this is from when I was a teenager, and it didn't change now. My two favorite tracks were between Unanswered and No Pity for a Coward. Now, the reason why I love No Pity for a Coward is that chorus, which I've always wanted a jumper of the chorus, because I've only get jumpers of it. But it's like, what's it gonna be? Pull the trigger, bitch. Like just hearing him say that, it's so demented, but it's so bad. I was like, pull the trigger, and then throughout the song, you coward, you're a fucking disgrace. It's just a fucking insane song. So I've always loved that song for how brutal it is. But Unanswered, just the groove, the pattern, the guitar, that is, and then Mitch's, and then the chorus, where is your God? Where is your fucking God? It's just everything about those two songs is like just this monstrous energy. So I think just to choose one for the sake of it, I'm going to choose Unanswered. But to me, Unanswered and No Pity for a Coward are just right there neck and neck. It's just raining down brutality, and I can't get enough.
Sweet, man. Yeah, so just while you were doing that, I just figured this out. Can you hear it?
Yep.
Wait for it. Just while you were doing your bit there, I learned how to play.
Oh, that's amazing.
Right, cool, man. Yeah, I was nearly with you. I was nearly with you this week, actually. Unanswered is a badass tune. Revelations, I thought you'd give out to me if I said that one, so I did pick another one. But my reason for the other song is pretty weak, like, so you probably give me stick for that anyway. But so we're totally not matching up this week, which is probably the first time in ages there hasn't been at least 50%. My least favorite song is see, this is it. I don't really know. It's very hard to pick a bad song on this album. I'll go with my favorite song first, just to get out of the way. Hands of a Killer is absolutely kick ass. That's track number 3.
Yeah.
There's that lovely Deftones style. It's like Stephen Carpenter has this, or Stefan, whatever way you want to say his name, the badass from Deftones, has this really cool guitar playing style where the riffs will come back around on themselves, Any Deftones fans out there will know what I mean. And it makes them so hoppy, nice groove to them. This opening riff just has that, and straight away I'm just drawn in. It's like pure brutality though, when it kicks in then after. It's like a non-stop beast. The production really, really gets pronounced on this track. It's just incredible, but how they can get a track to sound so precise when it's so brutally heavy. And the fact that it was played live, it's like you said about Mitch being, godlike. This is insane shit. Like, Mitch's vocals on this track are outrageous. How he's able to hit that crazy high ranged fry and the deep gutter roll, like back to back. Like there's no one bit. That's the thing he does that nobody else, as far as I know, does. You usually have a section where you sing in one style and then you'll sing another style. He does them sentence back to back, sentence to sentence. Like he's jumping between sentences, and it's just crazy. But the Deftone riffage definitely done it for me on this one. It's amazing. The lyrics are very cleverly written as well. He does have a very cool. Sometimes his lyrics are a bit extreme, a bit over the top, but you can't take away that they're very cleverly written. He was definitely a wordsmith. Anyway, I'll give him that. But so that would be my favorite song. I don't know. Least favorite song. This is a tough one for me today now. One other song I wanted to hit on just as well. This was a close one. There's that nice Sepultura type tone in track number 10 in a photograph. They had this, it must be Mark. He just has this really cool attention to the tones that he goes for. You can really hear his inspiration. And speaking about lyrically, I just want to quickly say something about Girl of Glass. That is such an interesting concept. Like those three songs really, and Unanswered actually, really, I had to really think about which I was going to pick for my favorite track, because the lyrics in that Girl of Glass is where like a girl she's always struggling to succeed, but she keeps trying even though she knows there's no hope. Like it's a really cool concept for a song. The way you put it, like it's not just talking about oh, this girl's sad and she can't do stuff and she feels shitty, and he just has a really nice way of putting it. Like it's very, very cool. You've done that on quite a few songs. The Fallen has a lovely dissident guitar kind of vibe off it as well. So there was just too much. I couldn't pick. But which song was it? The Disease. It's probably the only song where I felt something that I wasn't entirely happy about. And this is a weak reason again, man. It's like there's lyrics in it, and he's saying like, basically the song is about humans being like a plague, and where the disease, and obviously he had a rough couple of days leading up to that, and things were getting him down. And a lot of the time lyric writing like that is more of a vent. He's probably going around jolly as fuck, but he just wanted to vent in his music, which I can totally get that. But if I was 10 years younger, I probably wouldn't be saying what I'm saying now, because the older you get, the nicer you get, and you get more relaxed about things. But this song is pretty much just like, down in the human species, and that's cool. If you're a young angsty kid, that's great. If like I said, if I was younger, I probably wouldn't be saying this, but I would change the lyrics, the plague of us, the disease, to people are great, the world is great. Like I just that's the only reason why it's my least favorite song, because like I disagree with him. He was only 28 when he died, so a pity he didn't get another 10 years to realize that the world's great, people are great, and that's Ren's therapy corner for the.
Oh, it's good. Good episode. Do you know what you're going to choose?
I don't actually. As per usual. I'll let everybody know tomorrow, but it's gonna be a good one. I promise.
Nice. Well, yeah. This I guess for the podcast. I'll have this uploaded hopefully before it's 10 o'clock today. Right, it's 10 o'clock now. I'll try and get out before midnight. And yeah, we'll see everyone next week. And until then, same time, same place, or something.
Same bat channel, everybody. Peace.